We're joined now by Jason Nichols. He's a senior lecturer in the African American Studies Department, the University of Maryland, College Park. Hello again, Jason. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. So there's some who say that we continually celebrate the same individuals and episodes in American history while overlooking so many others. So my question is, how can Black History Month be thoroughly marked in a respectful, meaningful way by the nation?
Well, I think one of your other guests, I think earlier said, it has to do with education. We have to be educated about some of the other people who have done so much for our nation, and that Black people have contributed to every part of our nation, from healthcare to criminal justice. And it hasn't always just been about the struggles that Black people have suffered, but also about the contributions that they've made. And there are so many names that aren't household names that should be. So I think one of the things that we have to do, particularly me as educators, is try to make people aware of the great contributions that African Americans have made throughout history.
And now we've seen some really momentous events over the past year, from the killing of several Black men in police custody to the election of the first Black Vice President of the United States, and they remind us of the continued struggle for racial justice. But do you see that conversation taking place where it matters?
Well, I think that there are conversations being had in important places. I think people are starting to actually talk about these things, particularly in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. We should have been having these conversations much earlier because we know those names, but there are so many other names that led to those that we did not talk about. But I think that sometimes in the seat of power, they are having the conversations, but we can't let them stop. Let this just be a quick movement that ends. We have to put pressure on our elected officials, on our healthcare system, that the everyday racism that occurs all the way to the violent acts that we've seen have to stop, and that takes pressure from everyday citizens, and it shouldn't just be incumbent upon Black citizens to do this. This is something that our Asian American brothers, that our white brothers and sisters, that our Latino brothers and sisters also have to push for. Because as we all know from the Nehemiah poem, first it may come for one group of people, but eventually it will come for you. So we need to attack systemic racism and make sure that people in the seats of power must address these issues.
Right, and of course Joe Biden entered the White House promising to advance what he calls social equity in the country. So what for you requires the most urgent action?
Well, I think one of the major issues that we're seeing right now are the disparities in healthcare. We know that there are many people who are healthcare professionals who have just a wrong understanding and thinking that Black people's bodies are somehow different. There was a study that said that many medical professionals think Black people have thicker blood, that they're not, that they tolerate pain better. And this leads to some of the health disparities that actually claims lives. And right now, we're in the middle of a global pandemic where African Americans are 3 times more likely to be infected and to die of COVID-19 than their white counterparts. So I think healthcare is life or death for African Americans. But we can talk about all of these issues, from criminal justice to police brutality. I think they all matter, and we should attack all of them simultaneously. But healthcare, to me, is something that has gone under the radar for far too long.
Long way to go. Jason Nichols, thank you so much for your time.